The House committee investigating January 6th will soon be reaching the end of its current public presentation. Earlier this week, the committee held its 7th hearing, which included newly acquired testimony from former White House counsel Pat Cipollone and a recounting of a now infamous December 18th White House meeting.
On the evening of December 18th, 2020, Sidney Powell, General Michael Flynn, and others entered the White House for an unplanned meeting with the president, the meeting that would last multiple hours and become hot-blooded and contentious.
We were pushing back and we were asking one simple question: where is the evidence?
I'm going to categorically describe it as, you guys are not tough enough.
What they were proposing, I thought was nuts.
He asked Pat Cipollone if he had the authority to name me special counsel, and he said yes.
I don't think Sidney Powell would say that I thought it was a good idea to appoint her special counsel. I was vehemently opposed. I didn't think she should have been appointed to anything.
Hours after that meeting, Donald Trump sent out a tweet telling his supporters about a big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Be there. Will be wild, he wrote. The committee found that Trump's tweet served as a call to action for right-wing extremists.
One post encouraged others to come with body armor, knuckles, shields, bats, pepper spray, whatever it takes. All of those were used on the 6th. The Donald.win featured discussions of the tunnels beneath the Capitol complex, suggestions for targeting members of Congress, and encouragement to attend this once-in-a-lifetime event.
The committee also released a draft tweet that was obtained from the National Archives. It showed Trump and his team had considered sending this tweet urging his supporters to arrive early and to expect to march to the Capitol. Now, that tweet was never sent, but according to messages obtained by the committee, Trump's march to the Capitol announcement was expected by those close to the rally planning. Here's what one of the members of that January 6th crowd, a man named Stephen Ayers, told the committee on Tuesday.
We went basically to see the Stop the Steal rally, and that was it.
So why'd you decide to march to the Capitol?
Well, basically, the president, got everybody riled up, told everybody head on down. So we basically were just following what he said.
This latest hearing further demonstrated how Trump clung to his lies. It also shined a light on the real-world impact that those lies had. But perhaps more importantly, the committee provided evidence that Donald Trump planned on telling his supporters to march to the Capitol, and that extremists in the crowd were fully prepared to take up that call. The committee also revealed that Donald Trump himself tried to call a witness cooperating with the 1-6 committee, raising new questions about possible witness tampering. NBC News has learned that this witness was a member of the White House support staff. Now, whether all of the evidence the committee has presented will be used as a criminal case, that ultimately will be up to Merrick Garland and the Justice Department to decide. There will be a primetime hearing next week and potentially more after that. But members of the committee, like Congressman Adam Schiff, seem to be losing a little bit of patience.
It is so unprecedented, and I've been a part of many congressional investigations that have been contemporaneous with Justice Department investigations, but it is unprecedented for Congress to be so far out ahead of the Justice Department in a complex investigation. And I think there's a desire of the Justice Department to restore the independence of the department, to avoid controversy. And while I appreciate all of that, I think that if they take that too far, that is that the desire to avoid controversy, and they somehow, in practical effect, immunize the former president because it would be controversial to investigate a former president. That's a political decision, and I think a very dangerous one.
Joining me now is one of the best reporters on the January 6th beat. That's congressional reporter for The Guardian, Hugo Lowell. Hugo, it's always great to have you. According to Chairman Benny Thompson, the 1-6 Committee and the Department of Justice have only communicated about evidence and testimony pertaining to the fake electors scheme. Do you agree with Congressman Adam Schiff that it's really strange that the committee seems to be so darn far ahead of where the DOJ seems to be?
I think it's difficult to tell, right? The Justice Department doesn't confirm the existence of ongoing investigations, so we really don't know what DOJ is specifically looking at and what they're not looking at. I think there's several points to consider when we're thinking about what DOJ is doing. I think, first of all, the Attorney General said a couple of weeks ago that he had asked, or he suggested that he had asked the Office of Legal Counsel inside the Justice Department whether he could open an investigation into the former president, and then he was told that the response was, yes, you can open an investigation into the former president. So they are at a baseline asking about this, which I think is a good sign. And we also know that there's a number of grand juries that have been impaneled, especially with like the fake electors case, which the Justice Department is now discussing the transfer of evidence or the review of evidence that the Select Committee has with the Chairman Benny Thompson. But the fact that we have a grand jury looking at the rally organizers, we have a grand jury looking at the fake elector scheme, and potential other grand juries that we don't know of yet. I mean, there was also another grand jury with Peter Navarro. And so I think we should probably take a circumspect approach and notice that the Justice Department has ongoing criminal investigations that are open.
Point of personal privilege, I think the low-hanging fruit is the fake electors issue, not so much the 1-6 Capitol events, but that's just my 2 cents. According to your recent reporting, Hugo, next week's hearing will end this series, what we're calling series of hearings, with the possibility of another series starting in late August. Do you have any insight into what the next series of hearings will be focusing upon?
Not yet, other than the fact that they're considering a second series of hearings. I think that, again, this investigation is an ongoing investigation. Just because this series of hearings end purportedly on Thursday with the 187 minutes on the Capitol attack and how Trump didn't do anything to try and stop it, it speaks to that inaction part of that criminal statute for the obstruction of an official proceeding. Just because that hearing ends on Thursday doesn't mean the investigation stops. They're going to be working all the way through the summer. Just because the members are campaigning and they're back in their districts doesn't mean that the whole team of senior investigative counsels, the staff directors, they're not working, and they very much are. So I think the aim of the second set of hearings is to go into greater detail because the hearings thus far have been a kind of superficial look at what the committee has uncovered. And then the second set of hearings, I think, gives them an opportunity to really dig into the details and try and show the connections between Trump World and the Capitol attack and see if there was some sort of organized conspiracy there.
So the committee, we know, has interviewed over 1,000 people, including former officials at the Pentagon. The story at the Department of Defense and a number of last-minute appointments after the election is something that the committee so far really hasn't touched. Is there anything that you are surprised so far that the 1-6 Committee hasn't covered yet in its presentations, or that you think they should have or can delve more into?
I think it's a good question. I think the Select Committee has been very attuned to the fact that this is a very complicated story and that they want to present a narrative that the American people can understand in the kind of like bite-sized chunks. So that has been the kind of aim to date with these hearings. I think with the second set of hearings down the line and their final report, they can really get into the intricacies of these connections and these very strange movements that were going on post-election and running up into January 6th. As you say, people getting replaced at the DOD, loyalists like Kash Patel were getting installed in key positions, both at the both at the Department of Defense and also at the Justice Department. And so when you take all of these things together and you triangulate, the picture that emerges, or the picture that is emerging, is of Trump putting loyalists in certain places that would help him potentially overturn the election. I think that's really significant.
And ahead of 1-6. That's the important timing. Hugo, I would be remiss to not ask you, because you are here now. This morning, you were present for the final pretrial conference ahead of Trump acolyte Steve Bannon's criminal contempt trial. As everybody will recall, Bannon refused to show up before the 1-6 Committee. Bannon and his lawyers have been trying repeatedly to delay the start of the trial. What happened in court today? Will Steve Bannon go to a jury trial this month?
We are going to trial next week, next Monday. Steve Bannon's case goes forward. There will be a jury selection. Judge Nichols denied Bannon's motion to try and delay the hearing because of publicity generated by the January 6th committee's hearings. The Justice Department said, and they kind of mocked Bannon actually in one of the previous court rulings, saying, he was mentioned all of 30 seconds in the hearings thus far. And so Judge Nichols is going to go ahead with that jury selection, and Bannon's defenses are really kind of eviscerated. He's got basically two defenses left. One is that he can try and claim that he wasn't aware about the subpoena deadline, and then his other argument really is that he was in default, which is going to be a very difficult argument to make, I think, and if he loses, he's going to have to go to the circuit court to overturn the controlling case law.
Hugo, quickly, he can always take a plea, though, right? He can always plead guilty and throw himself at the mercy of the court. What are the chances that we see Steve Bannon between today and Monday, July 18th, taking a plea to his criminal contempt case?
I spoke to him yesterday. He tells me that is zero, but he said it in more colorful terms, but so far it's zero.
Colorful terms that we cannot use on television. Thank you, Hugo Lowell, correspondent for The Guardian. And as I always say, tip of spear when it comes to knowing everything and all things 1-6. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.